So, Brandon, today we have a bit of a mixed bag in gaming news. We have some interesting information coming out of Nintendo in Europe related to those user replaceable batteries that are now mandated by the EU for the Switch 2. And of course, because the industry continues to be terrible, Xbox is undergoing a massive amount of layoffs, restructurings, studios, sales, not closures, interestingly, but sales. A lot of ground to cover. But let's go ahead and start with the Nintendo Switch 2. Over in the EU, if you're unaware, that it was recently mandated that products such as the Switch 2 have to have user replaceable batteries. This is objectively really a good thing for preservation of these, right? Because controllers with built-in batteries will eventually go bad. And if you can't replace them, you basically are no longer with a functioning controller or a console.
Yeah, this is only a good thing. Right to repair, I think, is something that we should be striving for. I'd like to see all this stuff applied to the rest of the world as well. But it's cool. We actually got a layout here of the products that are affected and even like some of the changes to the actual battery capacities. Weirdly enough, the Switch 2, like the actual console, it'll have replaceable battery along with the Joy-Con 2s. It's going to be a 1% smaller battery, just a teeny tiny bit smaller.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's cool that it's mostly the same, and I get why they have to do this, because for a user replaceable part, for people who might not know, it probably doesn't have like a ribbon cable that goes directly to the motherboard. It probably has like a little port, like if you've ever replaced a battery, like in a 3DS or a PSP, it's probably something closer to that. These batteries, quote unquote, very technically speaking, are replaceable in the Switch 2. They're not like soldered down, but they're like glued on really hard. You have to know your stuff and be very careful. This is going to be something where it's like, I would imagine you can take off the back of your Switch 2 and just pull it out and put a new one on and close it, and you're done.
I would hope that they'd make it easy, unless they want to be really, unfair and make it difficult, so you still, want to go to Nintendo to have it done.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is a really interesting thing. I hope that, obviously Nintendo would replace a battery under warranty or probably charge you a bit if your battery is shot. But this is about having the ability to do this, years and decades down the road, right? Like once the Switch 2 is no longer having replacement parts made for it. For instance, I've recently been playing with my PSP. I got home from Anime Expo, and I just kind of, with the store closures and stuff, I wanted to get some last minute PSP games, and I realized my battery is just toast. Like it's not good. And so I have to go buy a new one. And thankfully, because it's just a user swappable battery, I can go on Amazon, buy a new battery, even though it's been out of service for decades, and just drop that thing in and be done with it, like 2 minutes. And it seems like that's what this EU law is kind of angling toward, right? What makes this interesting, though, is we still don't know, like, kind of what constitutes user replaceability, right? Like, is there going to be like a little latch door on the back of this new model of Switch 2, which I doubt, or is it going to be like, you can remove a small number of screws to get to it, similar to how the new 3DS worked. But they've outlined a whole ton of different changes here. We should probably go through these, but it's kind of like a strange schedule where some of these are coming out sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
So the Joy-Con are coming out. It basically says like different colors will be available at different times, starting in summer, which is now. So you might be able in the EU to get these new user replaceable batteries like soon. And this one's actually cool because they say that the battery capacity and the weight are just no different. Like it's the exact same experience, except you can actually replace the battery in these things. And that's kind of the ideal, right? Like that's what we want to see.
And to clarify, this is the Joy-Con 1.
Yes, this is Joy-Con 1, which is really interesting. Maybe now's a good time to talk about the dark lining around this. Is that the Switch 1 and Switch Lite, those are going away. Like they said by mid 2027, they will just no longer produce them, rather than creating a variant of the Switch 1 and Switch Lite that have user replaceable batteries. Nintendo's just going to discontinue the hardware over there, which I guess makes sense because obviously R&D efforts to make a new Switch 1, it kind of feels like you're beating a dead horse at that point.
Yeah.
They obviously want people to get a Switch 2, and maybe this is just a convenient out for them to be like, yeah, we're just not making them anymore over there.
That's the Switch 1, the Switch Lite, and the Switch OLED.
Yes. No last gen hardware is getting user replaceable batteries, and they're basically pulling them from the market at that point. Like once this goes into full effect, because they have to. So it's either produce a new model or don't sell it. And I guess for the Switch 1 line, they decided just not to sell
it. To go on a slight tangent related to this, do you think that this has any particular effect or influence on the future of Switch 1 software?
That's a really good question, because you're cutting out a pretty big market, right? You're now it's like, oh well, we have the existing install base in the European Union. That's a really hard one for me to say, but I'm going to say I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is we're already kind of seeing Nintendo deprioritizing Switch 1, which I think they should over a year into their next console's life cycle.
Yeah.
You're only seeing like releases that, for lack of a better term, are more casual, being marketed as like primarily Switch 1, right? So Tomodachi Life, Rhythm Heaven Groove, stuff like that, where they're like, hey, this is Switch 1, also plays on Switch 2, but they're marketing it primarily as a Switch 1 game, notably without any Switch 2 enhancements or a Switch 2 edition, right? Mm-hmm. So I think they've already kind of been pulling back on that, and I think Nintendo probably internally has some metrics or data to say like, hey, we're only selling X number of Switch 1s now that the 2 is out. There's not a lot of value left in it for us because we've sold so many of them. The one thing that I do think could happen here, though, is that the Switch 1 has been like within spitting distance of that PS2 all-time hardware sales record, and I don't think we're getting there now. I think that will be the reason that the PS2 remains the king of the sales heap.
Yeah, I think this is the final nail in the coffin on that. I mean, ultimately, it doesn't matter. It's just a number, right? It would have been cool to see it happen because those PS2 sales are astronomical. That was like lightning in a bottle, the perfect situation. Like here, there's a DVD player in this console. It's the cheapest way to get one, and then they flew the consoles off the shelf. The fact that the Switch was catching up to those numbers just purely being a video game device is really impressive.
Yeah, it really is. And it's something that I think I'm glad you mentioned the DVD thing, because that's something that I don't think we always consider when we talk about how successful the PS2 was. Because it did have that added benefit of just being a really good DVD player at a time when those were still crazy expensive. But anyway, that's probably like a whole separate thing that we could probably do an hour on. Because we've still got a ton of hardware here, right? Let's talk about the console itself. You mentioned it. Basically, the battery is changing. It's getting 1% smaller. So a negligible change there. Like it's, I don't think people are going to notice. Interestingly, though, it is about 10 grams heavier than the current version, which again, I assume because you have to have some kind of difference in hardware to accommodate user replaceability. And then they mentioned with the Joy-Con 2 controllers attached, it actually becomes about 14 grams heavier. I don't think that's a big deal. I don't think the Switch 2 is particularly heavy. I don't know that I'm going to notice an additional 10 or 14 grams when I'm playing handheld mode.
I'd be surprised if anyone noticed.
Yeah, and I certainly don't think people are going to notice a 1% difference in battery. Like that to me feels like just negligible difference, right? Like that's a rounding error essentially. So I think this is cool. I'm just really curious about the design of these. Let's see. Let's just go ahead and go on with the Joy-Con 2 because we already touched on Joy-Con 1. Now, the Switch 2 comes out in autumn. Joy-Con 2 come out in winter. So I don't know what that means. Like, do you buy a Switch 2 without the improved Joy-Con? Like, does it come with the old Joy-Con design still?
I imagine it comes with the new design because I think it would have to.
I imagine it
Um,
does too, because then you wouldn't have maybe that's why the Joy-Con 2 come out in winter, is because packaged versions are going to have to wait until they've produced enough to go with Switch 2 consoles.
yeah, that allocation's got to go to the console SKU first. Yeah, I mean, and it mentions here in the Switch 2 portion about the weight regarding the Joy-Con 2. I think that just says pretty clearly that they're going to be there in the box, the new
Yeah,
version.
sure. And to be fair, they do say that unlike the Switch, there's absolutely no change in battery life, or in battery capacity. Let's be clear. They're not measuring like hours. They're saying the capacity of it like in milliamp hours or,
Yeah.
so that it's exactly the same. Each Joy-Con is about 2 grams heavier. So I agree with you. I think that literally spells out 10 grams heavier for the console, 14 grams heavier when it has the Joy-Con attached. That clearly points to it, the updated Joy-Con being in the package with the console. I think the next one is going to be a pretty severe blow, though. The Pro Controller 2 takes a 16% hit to battery capacity on the updated model, and I'm just not sure how they manage that.
I mean, this is on a controller that already has really good battery life.
That is true.
But that does suck. It's not, I mean, if it was like 20% or higher, I'd be like, ugh. 16%, I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
fine.
You're losing a little less than a fifth of your battery life. And granted, like you said, Switch 2 Pro controller does have pretty spectacular battery life. Like, it lasts quite a while. I charge mine every couple of weeks, it feels like. So I don't think that this would be like a huge noticeable difference. We're not going to suddenly go to like DualSense levels of battery life.
No.
But I do think that, if I knew that going in, I'd probably try to snap up a built-in battery version before, so I don't know. Again, it depends on how easy it is to swap these batteries in and out, right? Like,
that's the question I have about this hardware in particular, because the Switch 2 Pro controller is a like seamless design.
Yep.
There's no seams on the handles. The seam is on the front plate. And I've watched videos of it being disassembled, and it looks like a nightmare.
Yeah, that's a really good question, one that I hadn't considered, because like you said, the Switch 2 Pro controller is basically like a screwless design. Like, there's no obvious point of entry. Like, on the Switch, on the Joy-Con even, like, I could figure out a way in with a screwdriver and some patience. I couldn't do that with the Pro controller. That does seem like it would be just a headache.
Yeah, there are guides to disassembly. Obviously, you can do it, but it seems a lot more prohibitive than anything else on this list here. So I wonder, does that mean the design changes, or are they just going to make it hell?
I feel like it's a bit of both, probably. But those come out in the winter, and I honestly want to get my hands on them. I'm sure people over in Europe who will have us covered, and we'll get to see these as soon as they hit the streets. Coming up to 2027, though, both of the NSO controllers from the Switch 2 era are getting updates. One of the Pro controllers for Switch 2 and obviously a Nintendo Switch original Pro controller are getting updates. We're getting the N64 and GameCube controllers, and these are, I think, the GameCube controller is by far the most interesting thing in this list. We'll cover that in just a sec. N64 controller is pretty much everything you can want from an update like this. No change to battery. It's 1 gram heavier. Like, it's the same thing, but you can replace the battery. Oh, geez. But the GameCube is the only one that is objectively like a net improvement. Like, you get a bigger battery in the GameCube one. I mean, it's 5%, which again is negligible, but it's interesting that of all of these, it's the only one that has more capacity than the previous version. They're like, we'll just make the battery a little better, and we'll make it replaceable.
That's super weird, but cool. We'll take those.
Yeah, early 2027 for this one as well. It adds about 5 grams of heft, but it's really easy to forgive like an increase in weight when you're also getting a bigger battery at the same time. It's like that, it feels very obvious what you're doing there.
Yeah, I
But
mean, both the weight and the battery are probably negligible.
yeah, yeah.
But still, it's worth noting that it is, technically speaking, an improvement.
Yeah, and I think this is very interesting. Like Nintendo also has said that, obviously the Joy-Con 2 battery changes are coming to all the colorways. So, the two that we have currently and the like blue and yellow ones that are coming out, I think very soon. Those will all have the user replaceable battery, and of course, whatever colors they announce in the future, they'll do the same because it'll become the standard. And they basically say there's no way to know for sure what you're getting. Like if you go to a retailer, they might have the old ones, they might have the new ones. They're like, we don't know. Like their FAQ is basically like, we have no way of telling you what you're going to get when you go to a store, which makes sense. I don't think they're going to brand this any differently. They don't want to confuse customers by being like, oh, this is the new Nintendo Switch 2. It's just, for compliance reasons. And I think this is objectively a good thing. Like, I want to be able to use my Switch 2 10 years from now. I want to use it after Nintendo is no longer supporting the hardware, and right to repair opens up the ability for third parties to continue making batteries after Nintendo stops. And that's
Yeah.
the cool thing here. That is really what this is achieving, is it makes it easier for us as a community to continue to love and use these things long after Nintendo has decided they no longer want to produce them. And that's a huge win. I hope that this comes everywhere, but honestly, I kind of don't think it will. I think what'll happen is when Nintendo is ready to do a proper revision of the Switch 2, like a Pro or an OLED or something, they may just bake these things into the design and we'll all get them. But I think for now they're just producing, strictly for the EU market, these special user replaceable ones, and we'll continue to get the ones that we've had until there's like a new hardware piece for them to announce.
Yeah, I mean, they would have to upend their entire like manufacturing pipeline to do this across the board, and then there's the problem of like informing users, and then there's like the value proposition of we're going to sell the same product in the same market for the same amount of money, but technically this one's better because I can replace the battery. But
Yeah.
there's no visible markings on the box that make it seem any different. It's like playing the screen lottery with the Game Boy Advance SP.
Yeah, it is exactly like that. And I think if they go out of their way to let people know, hey, this is coming. Nintendo of America in particular is very risk averse. We didn't get the new 3DS for a while because they thought people would be confused. Like the smaller new 3DS, they're like, oh, people won't understand. And I'm like, maybe you're not giving us enough credit. But then again, watching all the game card discourse on Twitter, maybe Nintendo's right about some stuff. Maybe Nintendo, I'm not giving them enough credit on our inability to understand things people tell us.
I did that whole video on like the Switch 2 boxes and what they were going to look like before we knew. Mainly because I didn't trust the consumer to be able to figure it out. And I'm like, that's where my mind was. It's not unfounded.
Yeah, I am shocked. I saw that viral thread on Twitter just about people talking about, like people legitimately think every game on Switch 2 is a game key card. Like there are a lot of people who think that, and I'm kind of surprised by just how pervasive that belief is. But we've got something else, something deeply unfortunate to talk about. As unfortunate as is that people think game key cards are the only thing on Switch 2, there is something much more unfortunate happening over in Redmond, not at Nintendo, just down the road at Microsoft. Xbox has announced layoffs of 3,200 employees, with 1,600 of them being laid off today, and the other half just kind of like nebulously to come in the future, which if you work at Xbox, I feel for you. Like this is horrible news to get. And I feel tremendously bad for the 1,600 people that were let go today. I feel equally bad, if not worse, for the people who are going to be laid off, who don't know that like their future is just uncertain. I can't imagine going to work every day knowing another 1,600 people are going to be let go and just not knowing when. In fact, you know what? I say that. I do know how that feels. That has happened to me.
It's happened to me too.
I was once, I was once at a company where they laid off 3,000 people, and they told us that they were going to lay off 3,000 people, and they let us sit with that for like 3 months until it happened. And I was one of the affected people, just kind of working every day knowing that it might be my last day at work. So I don't wish that on anybody. It's terrible, and I'm so sorry to the people that have lost their jobs today and that will in the future. It sucks. And
quite possibly the worst time in history to lose your job.
Yes, too. We are in one of the worst economies ever, if not the worst economy ever. We're having, the games industry is contracting in a way that it really hasn't. And it's all, this isn't like, oh man, the developers just aren't making games that people want to play. We have like a record number of games. We're having one of the greatest years in gaming history in terms of the content that we're getting. So it's just mismanagement. It's executive greed and mismanagement that's causing these layoffs and these issues. And, you can lay a lot of it at the feet of Phil Spector, right? For buying up all these studios and then not knowing what to do with them once he did. And so let's talk about the affected studios for a little bit, right? We have had, the list is Compulsion, who made South of Midnight. We've got Ninja Theory, who literally showed off a new Senua game at the Xbox showcase. Arcane, who was working on Blade, like the Xbox's Marvel game. And I'm struggling to... Double Fine, thank you. And there was one more, I believe.
It was 4.
Oh, was it 4? Okay, then we've got them. Or wait, Undead Labs. Sorry, Undead Labs. Who are working on Dying Light 3. So there's our studios. Now the good news is they're not closing, but they are being sold off. And Xbox didn't really offer too much by way of details on who's picking them up. In fact, they didn't offer any. But at least I will say the nice thing here is that these folks are those studios aren't gone. I don't know what their future is. I don't know what they'll be doing, but to me, I will take this route over we're just closing these studios and getting rid of everyone that works at them. At least somebody sounds like they're going to pick them up. The situation with Arcane is kind of tied up, interestingly, in some French specific laws where they say that situation may resolve in a few months, but apparently the process of like selling off a French studio is quite a bit more complicated because of the laws surrounding it. So, but there's somebody interested in picking them up, is what it sounds like. At least Xbox has implied that they have buyers for all of these studios.
Double Fine went independent.
Yes, Double Fine did go full indie, which is great for them. I think that's where they thrive. That's where I fell in love with them. I never loved that they kind of got bought by Xbox. It didn't make a ton of sense. I get that, like, Psychonauts, at least even I personally viewed Psychonauts as like an Xbox game. It was just like something that defined the platform for me. But I never thought they should have been under the Xbox umbrella and owned by them. And they didn't really do, it seems like a lot didn't come out of that acquisition. We got Psychonauts 2, which was very cool.
Did much come out of any of these acquisitions?
I was about to say the same thing. You could say the same about literally any studio that Xbox has acquired. They really haven't they really haven't managed to get a good rolling cadence of games out of these studios. And I think that's just because they didn't know how to manage them. One of the things that I thought was very telling was they said that there were 14 layers of management in some of these studios. to like get decisions made.
Good
The
Lord.
email that Xbox CEO President Asha Shar sent out mentioned that a lot of these studios had 14 layers of approvals for decisions. And I'm like, that sounds terrible. Like, that sounds like you could never get anything done. She said that she's looking at reducing those to 3 or 5 in most cases. I none of that means anything to me right now. Like, I need to see actual games coming out of these studios. I need to not hear about layoffs happening every couple months, from one of the 3 biggest platform holders in the world. Like, I recognize something has to change at Xbox, but it just feels like a tidal wave, like a constant stream of bad news coming out of this company.
Well, the rumor that we've heard is that a lot of these decisions have been fast and loose. Some of them have been made and then announced within like hours or days. And as thick and like overbearing as all this information is, I can't help but feel like that's still happening. I don't feel the thought coming into this first, despite how many words I'm seeing on the screen and the reasons she gives for some of these decisions. I still feel like Xbox is just flying off the handle and just doing stuff until something works.
I agree. They feel like a company in free fall.
Yeah.
And it's sad because, I remember picking up the first Xbox and the 360 and loving the hell out of them. And, from the launch of the Xbox One onwards, it just kind of felt soulless. It felt like they didn't really know what their fans wanted, what they were doing. And the Xbox of today feels like a bunch of people who just are trying to clean up a giant mess and don't know where to start, right?
Yeah.
Like hearing reports that, they talked to a group of fans, essentially. Like, I want to be clear, I'm not trying to throw shade on any Xbox influencers in the community out there, but I mean, at the end of the day, they are like super fans, right? Like people who toe the company line pretty publicly. And they were like, oh, you can't show PlayStation logos in your trailers. And then that day they go off and like scrub PlayStation logos out of trailers because like 4 people told them that was something they should do. You've got this kind of like a lot of Xbox's goodwill exists in the hands of like rumor and speculation, like, oh, they're going to let you digitize your library. Well, they haven't said that to us, and even digitizing your physical library means that you're still moving away from physical games. If it is true, like, oh, we're killing physical games, but we're doing it in a cuter way than PlayStation's doing it. I just don't know that anything that I'm seeing out of Xbox is really encouraging news. Like, I understand, they say that their platform profit is 3 to 10 times lower than competing platforms, which has to mean PlayStation and Nintendo. I obviously there's no way to know if that's true, but if it is, woof. Like you own you own a lot of studios. And I guess it does take a lot to keep the lights on, but these are decisions that should have been questioned years ago, like during the entire FTC Activision lawsuit. Like, why are we doing this? Is it worth it? Is spending, oh God, what was it, like $80 billion on a company worth all of this? It sure doesn't seem like it.
She says right here in this email that in a typical year they lost 64 cents for every dollar invested. That's horrible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not good. And so it's very interesting to me to see that you've got like a negative ROI, right? And that you bought some of the biggest companies in the world. She mentions, interestingly, that I think King and Blizzard are like 2 of their good studios. And that's like, and now they report directly to her as opposed to whatever their previous structure was, basically saying, we're going to let the 2 of them do as they like, because they're doing well. But it also kind of points the finger at the rest of the studios they've picked up, saying like, hey, these guys aren't doing very well and we need to fix that. So I don't know where we're at with Xbox now. It feels like a exceptionally precarious positioning for them.
I view Xbox as a sinkhole. Like,
I mean,
nothing that they're doing is digging them out. They fall deeper. And this news is both okay and really awful. The 3,200 people being let go, terrible. The studios that are being sold and not dismantled, okay, that's at least better than the alternative. But it feels like everything that Xbox has done has only sunk them deeper and deeper, and it's hard to have any faith that they're going to come out of this. I am not like, people talk about Nintendo doomers all the time, and I'm not a doomer by any means, but I feel like I'm seeing the forest for the trees on this one, and I just don't see this turning around. I don't see how you can.
Yeah, I do wonder. I feel like Microsoft's larger goals and Xbox's don't align the same way they used to. And I think a lot of what has caused Xbox to be in the position they are is that they did try to align with what Microsoft wanted, like at a corporate level.
Yeah.
And that just is not in step with what gamers, your core customer base, want, right? Like we don't want Copilot. We don't want AI stuff like in our consoles, and while they've done good to reverse a lot of that, I still feel like the future is that Xbox and Microsoft part ways. I feel like Microsoft at some point is going to do to Xbox what Xbox has done to those studios. And they're like, we're going to put this out for someone to buy it. It's not going the way we want it to. We don't think it's going to get fixed anytime soon. And someone else can take on this massive business and try to turn it into something profitable. Because
I don't love the idea of big corporate entities splitting only to be purchased by other big corporate entity. Like, I feel like what's going to happen is, Microsoft sells off Xbox and then Amazon comes in and buys it. And that doesn't sound good to me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the only way to really return Xbox to form is to give them full autonomy. And I don't think that that's going to happen, unfortunately. I don't think that Microsoft is going to say, hey, we know you have been drastically screwing up for 10 years, but now we're going to let you do whatever you want independent of us, and that will somehow fix things. Even though I think it would fix things, I don't think that Satya Nadella or anyone at Microsoft corporate is going to see it that way. I think that realistically, Xbox leadership is doing the best they can with a really terrible hand, like the worst hand you could possibly have, because they set. But also, it was Xbox leadership that did all this, so it's just a weird situation where it's like, yeah, you've changed the guard, and I feel bad because you inherited something in really rough shape, and now you're trying to turn it around. But the steps you're taking to turn it around are also things that make people like the brand less, and that is. I don't know that you have a way out of that. So I agree with you. There's kind of like, it's a lose-lose for Xbox at this point. I don't think they can do much to really rehab their image. Unless they just start putting out banger games, right? Like if they somehow come out on top of this and, Halo Campaign Evolved is excellent, and you start following that up with, frankly, a Nintendo-like cadence of really good games, like month to month, Xbox fans start getting really good releases on the platform, then maybe you can rehab the image that way. But also, how are you going to do that while you're selling off studios? Like, so it's just it feels like an impossible position.
Yeah, I don't see this ending well for anybody involved.
No.
I don't think there's really a path forward without doing like a reset top to bottom. But I don't want any more people to lose their jobs. It's for the most frustrating thing about it, I think, is like anyone who wants to get into games development, as a worker, are now competing with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of industry veterans who can't get work. They have been sealed off from ever entering the industry.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and one that I hadn't thought of. Just the entry point to the industry is basically closed because you have so many talented veterans who have been working within this business for so long that unless you start your own indie studio or something like that, you're going to have a hard time because you're going to be going up against people who worked on, classic games. I mean, you've got people who worked on the original Destiny, the original Halo out there looking for a job. And I don't know, the smart money would be picking up people with 20, 30 years industry experience over somebody who just is trying to get in. And that is a deeply unfortunate position for the industry as a whole to be in.
Yeah, this will have repercussions that will last for generations, perhaps. Depends on how bad this gets. I mean, it's already pretty bad. We've been facing industry layoffs for years now.
Yeah.
I think the next 10 years of games are going to be very precarious.
Yeah, we desperately need a shakeup in the upper levels of the game industry. We need the executives who make these poor decisions to go. And that's really what it comes down to, because it's not the developers, it's not the artists, it's not the animators, it's not the 3D modelers. It is the executives who basically walk into a studio that makes great games like Spider-Man 2 and say, what if you guys did a Fortnite? And then just walk out of the room and then say, what do you mean it didn't work? I'm going to fire all of you. Like, that's what's happening. And there's this culture in corporate America that somehow if a rank and file person performs poorly, they are out the door. But if an executive does it, they are just moved into a different but equally influential role. And it's like, no, the stakes should be higher for the people who are more powerful. You should get one and you're done, because your fuck ups cost thousands of people their jobs. We should be throwing incompetent executives out. We shouldn't be hiring executives who don't understand video games to run video games.
Yes. Now you're speaking my language. The kinds of people who should be in these positions are the people who have worked in these roles.
Yeah. Nintendo famously turned their business around when Satoru Iwata became their president, because he understood what went into making games and he understood what people enjoyed playing. And you have a lot of people who admittedly don't even play these things, yet somehow they're making the decisions on what we get, like what we and they're just looking at, oh, hey, this game makes lots of money. You're a developer, you make games. I'm not going to ask you what games you're good at making. I'm just going to tell you to make this kind of game. It would be like going to a Starbucks and ordering a pizza. Like, they might make something resembling a pizza. It's going to be terrible, though. Like, I don't know how this doesn't get through to people, but it's the world we live in.
Yeah, it's a shame. I desperately hope that a lot of this stuff just turns around. Get rid of the AI boom so that consoles become affordable, so that people play and buy games, so that the people making the games don't lose their jobs. There's so many layers to what's happening right now.
Yeah, and it's all a bummer, unfortunately. But I think that's probably all we can say without repeating ourselves and then just getting sad. So any closing thoughts, Brandon?
That's it.
Yeah. You know what? If you don't do bad, maybe fire the people that make the decision, not the people who did the work. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this, subscribe to us over on Patreon. You'll get more stuff like this. You'll get it a little bit early. You'll get it in an audio only version. Patreon.com/GVGaming is where you can do that. But thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time. And until then, bye.
See ya.